I don't know if I told you guys this, but the loud bird that I've been hearing outside this whole time is actually a lizard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
I asked some people from here what bird that is, and they looked at me like, what kind of foreigner is she? Is she going to freak out, or is she going to... Because I was like, it's really big, and it sounds like it's right outside my window, but I can never see it.
Welcome to Screens of the Stone Age, the podcast where scientists review movies about prehistoric people. My name is Josh Lindell. I'm a PhD student studying Neanderthal teeth, and I'm here with...
I'm Kim Pomp. I am a bioarchaeologist. I study the human skeleton, evolution, and health and disease.
And I'm Ross Barnett, paleogeneticist, looking mainly at cats of the Ice Age.
And today we're reviewing the movie The Land That Time Forgot from 1974. If you want to feel for what kind of movie this is, it was featured on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Did you guys watch the movie, or did you watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version?
I wasn't sure what that was, so I didn't watch it. Because there's a 2009 version that kept coming up too.
It was surprisingly hard to find, the original one.
It was hard to find, yeah.
But I loved it.
What? Really?
Yeah.
I did not care for it.
Oh.
I mean, there's a few parts that I loved. Wow, this is opposite.
Who wants to summarize this one then?
Well, I'm just going to summarize it as boring men fighting poorly on a foggy submarine. Some funny stuff, and then just fighting again.
So hard to please, Kim. I'll summarize it.
I'm hard to please?
Yeah. So it's basically it's like a adaptation of an Edgar Rice Burroughs story. So the same guy that did John Carter of Mars and Tarzan and various other stories that haven't aged very well. But this one is fairly unproblematic, I think, and actually has some quite nice bits in it. But anyway, the film sort of starts with a kind of bleak, looks like Norwegian or Canadian kind of landscape, picking up a message in a bottle, essentially. And this is the kind of hook into the story. So the main characters of the story have written this manuscript of their great adventure and hoiked it into the sea, and it's now been discovered, and the narration kind of leads into the story. And how it starts is, I think, 1916, so middle of World War I, you see a German U-boat torpedoing a civilian ship, and it goes down like pretty much straight away, and you see soon after, in the mist and fog, one boat that has two individuals in it, a man and a woman, who think there's no other survivors. Then gradually they kind of drift into another boat full of survivors who are mostly sailors from the ship that's just been torpedoed. While they're kind of floating around aimlessly, they sort of spot the U-boat that sunk the ship. It surfaces, and they very quickly decide to take over the U-boat. The main character, who is played by Doug McClure, who's a kind of no-nonsense American, seems to have some kind of experience with U-boats, although this is never fully explained. I think he runs a ship. He's a heir to a shipbuilding company or something in the States, but that somehow gives him expertise with German U-boats as well. So they kind of, as the U-boat surfaces, they climb on board, they wait for the Germans to kind of come out of the hatch to replenish the air tanks or whatever it is they do, and they quickly set into like a sort of 10-minute punch-up with lots of really good sound effects like you would see in Batman, except without the kind of on-screen bams and wallops and all the rest of it.
Kapow!
But yeah, it kind of goes backwards and forwards. Sometimes the survivors of the ship are winning. Sometimes it's the Germans, and eventually the survivors of the ship do win and take the kind of captured Germans down below. Not without some of the sailors being kind of shot or pushed overboard into the water and sort of dying. So it's not been a kind of faultless takeover, but they get in there, and they kind of, there's an uneasy truce. They kind of put the German U-boat captain into the brig for a while, and they take control, and they want him to pilot to a British or American port, and so they set that in motion. But they travel for 6 days. They think they're going west. They're in the North Atlantic, so 6 days west should take them to either Canada or an American territory or somewhere. But Doug McClure is suspicious, and he takes the U-boat captain up on, or the second in command, up on deck, and they look at this one little compass, which is the kind of thing you'd get out of a cracker, which is on top of the U-boat, and they can't understand why the compass says they're going south, but they're not ending up in American waters. And then he kind of twigs that something's up and lifts this little bit of the compass and sees that somebody has stuck a magnet beside it. So it's been going, pointing in the wrong direction for 6 days. And the idea that the U-boat only has one compass is pretty out there, but it's quite a fun little trick that's been played on them. And so I guess at this point they must be somewhere close to the Antarctic, which is not where they're supposed to be. And then a little bit later, the tables are turned, and so the Germans get back control of the U-boat and put the survivors in the brig. But one of the survivors is a woman who is Miss Clayton, who is a biologist, and they have a nice discussion. She's treated better than the other male captives, and she has a nice kind of tete-a-tete with the U-boat captain, where they have a kind of metaphysical argument about what it means to be at war, and how their ship was destroyed. It was full of civilians, but it was actually also carrying ammunition and guns. And the captain rightly points out that if they hadn't blown up the civilian ship carrying this ammunition and guns, then those ammunition and guns would have been used to shoot his own countrymen, which I thought was quite deep for what is a very cheesy movie. So that was quite nice. Anyway, because Miss Clayton is kind of kept separate from the other captives and left to her own devices, she has the run of the captain's cabin, can read his books and stuff. She actually helps with the jailbreak when they're not looking, and breaks out the other captives, including Doug McClure, and they kind of get out and try and take over the ship again. The Germans have been heading towards a supply ship, which they know is in the area, and they're going to pick up new supplies because they're running low on fresh water and food. But when the captives take over the U-boat again, they fire the torpedoes at the supply ship and blow it up. So now they're kind of at a stalemate. The captives have control of the U-boat again, but now they've got no food and no fresh water. So they kind of have to come to some kind of compromise, and they essentially kind of team up against the common enemy of just not surviving. So that's quite a long intro with no real kind of dinosaur action happening.
No dinosaurs. We're like
no dinosaurs.
Half an hour in at this point, and I double checked to make sure I was watching the right movie, because I was like, this is about submarines.
But it's a really nice submarine set. I have to give them credit for that, and it's quite tense at times. Being inside a submarine makes everything tense. So considering that this is a very cheesy film, it does actually have some good moments in it. Anyway, so once they're kind of at this kind of compromise, they're kind of standing on the top of the U-boat, and they notice icebergs, which according to the German captain shouldn't be there. But he comes up with this crazy theory that they're heading towards an island called Caprona, which had been written about in the 17th century by an Italian explorer, I think, who had come just after Captain Cook, and he'd found it in the South Atlantic, and nobody else had ever been able to find it, yada, yada, yada. But while they're heading through the icebergs and towards this unknown Caprona island, they find that there's warm, fresh water surrounding the sub, so they must be coming close to a kind of outlet, a river outlet, which is good for them because that means fresh water, potentially, and food. But they use Miss Clayton's microscope to have a look at the water that's been brought up, and it's full of bugs, full of microbes, quite unusual microbes, apparently. But the water is not safe to drink, so they have to kind of follow it to the source to try and find better fresh water. And they see the kind of entrance to the river is underground. Well, it's like a tunnel, essentially, so they have to go through the tunnel in the U-boat. And this is one of the best bits of the film, I thought. It was really tense, the kind of U-boat trying to maneuver through this really tight underground freshwater river channel. And there's lots of kind of scrapes and lots of kind of sweaty men in the U-boat, not sure whether they're going to survive or not. But they get through it to the other side, and they end up in essentially the interior of Caprona, which is a kind of very primeval-looking, swampy place, the kind of place where you wouldn't be surprised to find some dinosaurs. And of course, as they're kind of surfacing, you see the first appearance of some very static-looking rubber pterodactyls flying around in the sky. You see some monsters, things that look like maybe a mosasaur, some kind of marine reptile.
I thought it was a mosasaur too.
Yeah, and a plesiosaur, which you only see a tiny bit of its neck with.
Well, I was wondering I thought that plesiosaur was a mosasaur and that they were just extending it.
They stretched
But
it out.
yeah, but then there was about two of them.
But
right?
at some points, it even looks a bit like a Spinosaur. It's got a weird kind of shaped head. Anyway, I mean, these are incredible. Like the last couple of films we've watched are kind of stop motion, and these are not stop motion. These are puppets. And
I know they should have gone with stop motion.
Well, I mean, that would have been hugely expensive, but you can tell they're puppets, but in a way, it doesn't really matter. I mean, they're so kind of fun. They're just like they're what you want from a kind of monster movie, just slightly kind of Doctor Who-ish, made from a rubber glove and some double sticky plastic, some googly eyes kind of things, but with somebody's hand inside them, which gives them a bit of life, which you can't really get from in the same way from CGI or stop motion. So I kind of love that bit. But they kind of get attacked by the plesiosaur, which in the close-ups is very, very rubbery looking, and it attacks Doug McClure.
So one guy gets eaten, and the guy sitting next to him, so like they're standing on the base of the submarine, I don't know, by themselves, doing rogue stuff. And one guy gets eaten, even though he looks and he sees this monster coming at him, and then he just watches it come and eat him.
Yeah.
And then the guy that's sitting next to him just watches him get eaten and then just stays there for longer until everybody else is like, run. And he's like, oh.
Yeah, you're discounting like the human psychological fear factor when you encounter a real plesiosaur. You get rooted to the spot. I mean, it kind of overloads all of your circuits, and there's nothing you can do. So I find that very realistic. Yeah, so they eat some, and it takes a machine gun basically to take down this plesiosaur, which dies in a very kind of plasticky way.
This is my favorite part.
Yeah, they turn them into their dinner. So they have plesiosaur steak, which is great.
That looks so gross. It looks like jello-y-ish meat.
It's very grey. And
I know, it's great. Yuck. And then when Troy McClure or whatever is eating it and he's got that little waggly bit on the... so gross.
But it's really fun at the dinner table. They have all these kind of jokey discussions about whether white or red should go with the plesiosaur, which is fair enough. I think you've got to keep your standards high. And so they get some food. They know they're going to be able to eat. The plesiosaur is okay according to some of the people who eat it, but the water is still full of microbes. Apparently, they've kind of come further upriver and examined another kind of batch of the water, and it's still full of microbes. And they have another kind of nice philosophical discussion about German metaphysical analysis versus British empiricism, which feels totally out of place in a rubber monster movie, but it's quite nice as well. So they decide to kind of go further upstream to see if they can find more drinking water. And while they're doing that, they encounter a whole bunch of other dinosaurs. So they see some Allosauruses, which are kind of out hunting, and shoot them, of course, because this is still the era of whenever you see something big and unusual, you have to kind of fill it full of bullets. We see them being watched by cavemen, essentially. It's all men. And while they're kind of observing these Allosauruses, the cavemen attack, and the T-Rex, the Allosauruses eat one of the cavemen that's been knocked unconscious by the U-boat people. They kind of continue shooting everything, the dinosaurs and the cave people, and then the cave people run away, apart from one who's been knocked unconscious. The Allosauruses are kind of riddled full of bullets, but take forever to die, which according to the Germans is because they have such a primitive nervous system that they die before it's registered by their brains. And there's quite a kind of funny joke about how it was late to its own funeral. Anyway, so the Allosauruses are finished with. The unconscious cave person wakes up, and he's quite well done, I think. He's very short. He has a very nice makeup job, which gives him really big, pronounced brow ridges, a very wide Neanderthal-style nose, and I think you guys can correct me, but he looks quite good as a Neanderthal.
No, I thought makeup was great.
Yeah. He has a very hairy back as well, which we all know is a Neanderthal trait. And they kind of jostle him around a bit, and there's a bit of a kind of argy-bargy about how he should be treated, and so someone shouts, "He's not an animal," which is a fair point. They take him back on board the submarine without much trouble. He's impressed when he gets on the submarine by the use of a match. So again, this is the kind of classic caveman trope of being impressed by modern humans' control of fire. But somehow they manage to work out that he doesn't really like the fire because it reminds him of tar pits of oil seeping from the ground that he's seen.
Yes.
And this is a
that
kind
was
of
a very easy. Like, I want that woman on my charades team.
yeah, it was quite a kind of leap of understanding. But anyway, this is kind of a crucial point in the film because they've run out of fuel because they've been traveling for so long in the U-boat, and so the idea that there might be oil on Caprona that they could then fractionate and distill and turn into U-boat fuel means that they could escape, and that kind of spurs them on to further explore the island and find the source of this oil seep with the help of the caveman, who's called
Oh, I thought it was
No, I don't know.
Um.
Okay. So they get to show them where the oil comes from, and on the way again they get watched and attacked by more cave people or cavemen, because it's all men again. This time they're slightly different, so they're not Neanderthal-like. They're more like modern Homo sapiens, I think, which is one of the weird things about Caprona, is that it has this weird mishmash of different prehistoric periods of animals. So you've got dinosaurs from different periods, you've got Neanderthals and modern Homo sapiens, which is interesting, I guess. So after they get ambushed, they escape and they manage to find the oil that takes them to, and they kind of set in motion a plan to distill this oil to turn it into U-boat fuel. But suddenly, dinosaurs appear again, and so you have a Triceratops and a Ceratosaurus, I think, that go at it just to kind of fill up some of the space in the film. And the Ceratosaurus gets gored by the Triceratops. Then two Styracosaurus appear.
who do nothing wrong. Again,
yeah, they're just there.
They do nothing wrong. They don't even approach the humans.
Yeah, but they have to be machine gunned.
Yeah,
because what else are you going to do with them?
They got grenaded too.
Yeah, but they're kind of quite impervious to the machine guns, so they actually get them to fire from the submarine and blow them up that way. They really go to town on the Styracosaurs, and they get blown essentially to smithereens, which is great. So they can start refining and the collecting of the oil, but they're still looking for drinking water, so they keep moving upstream. They're finding fewer and simpler microbes in the water, but it's still not very drinkable. I don't know how they haven't dehydrated by this stage. Maybe the plesiosaur meat is very watery. Who knows?
There's also one point when one of the guys puts his hands, like midway up, puts his hands into a pool of water and takes like a drink and is like, "Oh, this tastes clean."
Yeah.
But then that never comes up again, and he survives that somehow.
Yeah. And it kind of carries on. So they look for more water. They're trying to find the source of all the kind of weird things that happen on Caprona. They travel upstream with He kind of warns them that things are going to go bad. They do. He kind of weirdly gets hypnotized or something by some of the other cave people and give him a spear and hunts the U-boat people. A pterosaur attacks and steals away. Although it's a really, really amazing pterosaur attack because it's the same very static-looking pterosaurs from before, but you can actually see the strings like really obviously, which I loved. I thought that was great.
Well, it was so sad when got eaten though, and then when it was flying away, his little legs were kicking still.
Yeah, yeah. What is one of these dinosaur films like somebody being abducted by a pterosaur? So they kind of get to the center of Caprona and they find the kind of ultimate prehistoric tribe, I guess, the only tribe that actually has women in it. I mean, this film in no way passes the Bechdel test. There's like only one woman who's allowed to speak, and all she does is like scream for most of it as she's running away from dinosaurs and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's a weird kind of conversation about what the tribe in the center of Caprona means, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But
I did not get that.
Yeah, I didn't get that either. But then a volcano erupts, another classic caveman film trope. Just whenever they kind of think things are going to come to an orderly end, volcano erupts and things go batshit. So you've got lots of polystyrene rocks falling everywhere on the cave people, everyone running around in a panic. Miss Clayton is being chased by a cave person all the way into some quicksand, which just happens to be there.
Was that quicksand? I thought it was just muddy water because they were fine getting out of it, and the caveman just slowly like let himself go into drown into it.
I think it was supposed to be quicksand in the way that kind of 70s movies do quicksand.
Right.
But I couldn't tell you for 100% that's
It just
what they
looked
were
like he
going
just
for.
gave up.
Yeah. And you would, wouldn't you, really? But Doug McClure rescues Miss Clayton from the muddy pool or quicksand or whatever it is, and they get out. But in the meantime, Doug and Miss Clayton had been sent off on this final trip while everyone else is back at the U-boat loading the last of the refined oil, and they only had a set amount of time to get back. And so all this has kind of put their plans to buggery, and the U-boat wants to leave, and there's the nice senior German captain who wants to wait for them, and there's the asshole kind of second in command German who wants to just leave. And so there's a bit of kind of conflict there, but they have no choice. They have a fight. The nice U-boat captain gets shot by the second in command, and they leave essentially as Doug McClure and Miss Clayton are getting back. The U-boat is disappearing as polystyrene rocks are falling everywhere, and their plan is to go out through the way they came in. But unfortunately, it's not to be. So the volcano eruption is so violent that actually some of the rocks sink the U-boat, and we're left with the view of Doug McClure and Miss Clayton watching in horror as the U-boat sinks. And then they disappear off to explore more of the interior of Caprona to discover its secrets. And you see that it's the two of them that have written this long message in a bottle, and the last scene is of them throwing it off the cliff, which the film starts with as well.
And now they're in love, even though there was never really any buildup of their love story. But I guess at that point, when it's just the two of you, you're like, okay, well, I guess we have to be in love now.
Yeah, it's either that or the cave people. So
yeah, good summary.
But Doug McClure, he's the man. I mean, he knows about U-boats. He's manly and strong and American.
I think I called him Troy McClure, which is from Simpsons, right?
Well, Troy McClure is based on Doug McClure. They're essentially interchangeable.
The same person, yes.
There's a great anecdote I read somewhere of because he's in tons of these films about Doug McClure trying to join a golf club, and the golf club says to him, "I'm sorry, we don't accept actors." And Doug McClure said to him, "I'm not an actor, and I've got 70 films to prove it. Let me into your club."
Nice.
But yeah, I really loved it. I mean, it reminds me of the kind of crap Saturday afternoon films that I'd watch as a kid, and I'm sure I watched this as a kid. Just rubbery puppets, kind of huge kind of veers in tone from kind of serious metaphysical arguments to laughing over plesiosaur steaks and that kind of things. I mean, they don't make films like this anymore. Ones that are kind of terrible but serious about themselves as well, and I just find them really nice.
I think I just found it a bit slow with all the fighting and stuff. But I love the dinosaur parts, and I love the eating the places.
You millennials with your short attention span, that's the problem.
Ugh, it's just so long. Like, how many people need to get punched?
All of them.
Even the guys in the movie enjoyed the fights, because at some point there was some English guy and a German guy that they get into a fist fight and they fall into the pool of oil and they're just punching each other. And everybody else just sort of gathers around and laughs at them.
Right, yes.
Yep.
Okay, do we want to nitpick all of the scientific inaccuracies?
Well, the first and foremost is, again, we see this come up time and time again, is this idea that they were fascinated by life on this island because it seems to be progressing. So every life form is more advanced than itself, and there was a human species that was more advanced than thought he was going to evolve within his lifetime, evolve into this more advanced gula or whatever species. And somehow so he draws 3 stick figures holding arms, and the biologist lady is like, I think what he's saying is that there's an advanced tribe of people and he thinks he's going to evolve into them. And they're like, no, that's insane. And she's like, no, but he believes it though. Look at the drawing. So
yeah, you want her on your Pictionary team as well as your charades team.
Yes, definitely. And so the idea that evolution is an advancement and that humans are this pinnacle and that everything gets like the linear evolution's a ladder type idea, which is incorrect. We've been over that a few times in this podcast.
Mm-hmm. but that's it. Everything else is 100% accurate.
It's pretty accurate, yeah. I mean, the Neanderthals, I liked the makeup, and when they had the tree that was marking territory, or like where he shouldn't pass, they had Neanderthal crania in the tree, like they always do, and those were pretty good.
They did quite a lot to give him, some kind of spiritual and inner dimension to him. So he had taboos about where he could go. He had his own kind of religion, his idea that he would evolve into a kind of different person within his lifetime.
Yeah.
He was intelligent. He had language.
Yes. And I was just going to say, and he was capable of learning and wanting to learn and communicate and all these things. So
and cooperation.
They did better than a lot of other movies where Neanderthals can't learn or they can't think or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wasn't offended at all by that.
He was also wearing a necklace of teeth, which is something that we think they probably did, at least with raven claws or eagle claws. I don't know if we have teeth that were made into jewelry for Neanderthals, but definitely claws and feathers or something they were harvesting.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, I think they were probably supposed to be dinosaur teeth, but that would make sense in the context.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did not understand the end, though, when they finally see women of the cavemen. And I got really confused because they said that as they were moving up the river, organisms were getting more simple and less concentrated. And so they thought that, evolution advances as you go downriver, right? So they're trying to find the opposite direction. And then they find this group of humans, which I thought they said were the most advanced ones. And then they were the ones with playing the music and had the painting on their shields and stuff. So it did look like they had a bit more modern, what we would consider modern culture than, and then the women were bathing in these weird bulb things full of milky water. And they were like, well, that's where everything must lay its eggs. This is where everything starts. And you're like, what is going on? This doesn't make sense. And then they just brush past that. You're like, no, you can't. You got to explain that more.
Wait, what? Step back a bit. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I didn't get it at all. I mean, was it supposed to be some kind of primordial soup that these advanced humans were kind of watching, like a cook watches a tureen of soup? I don't know. And then
I guess so.
Is it some kind of circular thing so that the primordial soup comes out of these things, kind of guided by the advanced humans, and then goes all the way to the edge of Caprona, and then somehow the organisms try and make their way back or something? I don't know. It didn't make any sense. Yeah. So I can see why they just brushed over it.
But put it just a little bit more thinking into it. Take another day at the script,
Yeah.
Do another round table session.
Another example of where this woman can just figure everything out with a glance. She sees, it looks like a giant hot cross bun with a pool in the top with women sort of...
Yeah.
Almost like they're stomping grapes in it or something.
Yeah, milky water.
And they look at it and she's like, oh, this is where all of the eggs start, and they flow down the river as microorganisms, and then they walk their way back to here and evolve along the way, I guess. And she pieces that together from women splashing around in some weird pool.
I know. It was very strange.
A biology degree will prepare you for a lot. I mean, it is a good all-round program of study.
Yeah.
But she has a very animal-centric biology degree, because when they said that, I'm like, okay, cool, the eggs flow down the river and the animals evolve on the way back. What about all the plants? How do the plants get there?
Or even the single-cell organisms don't come from eggs.
Yeah.
Right? So none of it makes sense.
Yeah.
She should have just said this is where life, they shouldn't have said egg. Egg is a very particular form of reproduction. She should have said, I don't know.
She just said
life.
Nothing. She just said, here's some weird humans having a jacuzzi in a hot spring. Let's not try and make some weird theory out of it. They're just having a bath.
This is one of the things that takes me out of a sci-fi movie the most, because you can have a movie where you just don't explain anything, like the Valley of Guanji. There's just dinosaurs. There's no explanation. I mean, vaguely the explanation was it's isolated or something, but they don't. It's just a movie with dinosaurs and cowboys. Don't explain it, right?
Yeah.
And then you can have a really well thought out explanation like Jurassic Park, where they get the DNA from the mosquitoes who are eating the blood of the dinosaurs. It all makes sense, kind of, if you don't, have a degree in biology or something.
It has internal logic.
Yeah. But then there's other movies where they explain it halfway, like this one, and like I wanted no explanation or I wanted fully explained, but like don't make some half-assed explanation because that just makes me ask questions instead of enjoy the movie.
Yeah,
Yep.
An explanation has to make sense or else it's not an explanation. It's just a bundle of words.
Yeah.
The one that everybody liked that I really hated for that was Annihilation. Have you seen that one?
Oh, yeah.
In the middle of the movie, they're like, why is this alien shimmer, what is it doing? It's like, it's refracting the DNA. And I'm like, no, I'm done with this movie. That doesn't make sense. I don't care about all of the deep, thoughtful parts of this movie. If you tell me it's refracting DNA and expect me to believe that, no.
We've had so many worse things throughout this podcast, though, than refracting DNA.
Yeah, I mean
that's a good, well-respected movie. Yeah. It's a highly regarded movie.
And it was Adam Rutherford that was science consultant for Annihilation, who's author and professor of human genetics, I think. So yeah, obviously, if you're a scientific consultant, you can't get every call right against the writers, but
they may not listen to you either.
I liked Annihilation. I thought it was one of the better sci-fi films of recent years. It was at least original, and apart from the DNA refraction, it did at least have an internal consistency of a bit.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah, it was very cool, very scary, that bear with the skull face.
Yeah.
Like, it was all excellent, but, like, it's that one thing that just ruined it for me. That's how I watch movies. One little thing will ruin it, even if it's a great movie.
Other issues, I guess, if you wanted to, you could fault how rubbery and puppet-like the dinosaurs are. I mean, the Allosauruses are fantastically bad. They're clearly somebody's hand in a glove puppet with tiny little sticks moving the arms. But I love that. I think
the only one I didn't like was the plesiosaur. I don't know why. I think because it looked like a worm. They didn't give it enough of a head. It was just its face on the end of its neck.
And when it was in close up attacking the guy, it was just like a head on a stick that they were just kind of moving towards him in a way. But no, I like the naivety of that. The idea that it was like quite an expensive film for the time. I think I read somewhere, but they were quite happy with glove puppets for their main dinosaurs, and expected everyone to be okay with that too. So you just have to be okay with it.
I think if it was just like a generic swamp monster, it would have been fine. But because they tried to say it was a plesiosaur, and for halfway part, I thought it was a mosasaur because I didn't realize there was two of them in the. But also, like, there is no way that tiny little area of water could hold a plesiosaur and a mosasaur.
They never show the whole body, though, do they? You sort of see the head.
It's just two different shaped heads.
You see the head with a long bit of neck. You don't ever see the body that would tell you that this is a plesiosaur because it has the whole kind of shape. So
no, they say that when they're eating it. And then the mosasaur, they never say what it is, but I just guessed from the shape of the head.
Yeah.
But I guess it would depend on when was mosasaur. Well, mosasaur, that was Marianne, wasn't it? Or was...
plesiosaur is definitely
she's famous for...
Yeah, but I thought it was also
an ichthyosaur as well.
Yeah, but I thought also...
Perhaps. I don't know.
Should we describe these? A plesiosaur is like a long-necked aquatic reptile with flippers. A mosasaur is kind of like a crocodile with flippers. And then an ichthyosaur is like a
reptile dolphin.
A lizard fish. Yeah. A reptile dolphin.
It wasn't Marianne. Yes, a plesiosaur for listeners is what some people think Nessie is.
Yeah, the classic kind of Loch Ness Monster cartoon is a plesiosaur.
Yeah, that's what I thought. And I read this I don't remember. God, I read so much weird stuff when I was a kid. What I thought was science books, but I remember reading this where the Loch Ness used to be salt water, and it got cut off, and then it slowly became fresh water. And so there was somebody who said that they thought that a plesiosaur that got trapped when it was still salt water would slowly adapt to the fresh water as it changed, because it would have changed slowly enough. And then that's why you have a freshwater adapted plesiosaur.
I mean, that's nice, but Loch Ness and all of Scotland and most of northern England were covered by an ice sheet. uh,
Well, I
between
didn't read
25
your book when I was young.
yeah, 25,000 and 8,000 years ago.
So she was
something like that.
hibernating.
Yeah, in a kind of subglacial lake.
When I went on Inverness, if you ever go, listeners, which is where Ross lives right now, and where he's from, you can take a tour, like a boat trip of Loch Ness. And I did this when I think during my master's or PhD. So at this point, I don't believe in Nessie, and I'm a scientist and everything. But I'm standing there, and I just want so badly to be the person that sees her. Right? Like, you're just like, come on, show yourself.
Oh, I get it. Every time I drive past there, I always have a look and fingers crossed this time.
The lake the city that I grew up in, Vernon, British Columbia, has a lake monster called the Ogopogo.
Oh, yeah? Oh.
It's a First Nations myth, Ogopogo. And we had property on a lake, my family, like my mom's family, so we shared with cousins and stuff, so it was really fun. We'd go out there and have a blast all summer. And then my mom and my aunt told us that Ogopogo wasn't allowed to cross the Kelowna Bridge. So the lake is like the lake goes from Vernon on one end of the lake to Penticton on the other, and then there's a bunch of towns in the middle. And one of the towns is Kelowna, which is quite large and has a big bridge. And my mom and my aunt said, well, like, the First Nations people made it so, like, in one of their myths or something, that the Ogopogo wasn't allowed to cross that. And so we were safe to swim in the lake. And it wasn't until I got older that I was like, that was made up. And I was really like,
they lied to me.
They lied to me. We could have gotten eaten the entire time. Yeah. But Ogopogo is not a plesiosaur. It's like a snaky thing, like a big, long, snaky thing.
Canada's got quite a few lake monsters, because there's also Champ as well in Lake
in
Champlain.
the US, but yeah.
Yeah. So you've got at least two lake monsters to our one famous one.
There was an Ogopogo photograph or sighting not that long ago, within recent years.
All right.
You should Google it. It's spelled exactly as you'd think, Ogopogo.
Probably just otters, right?
It's the way that the waves, you see it quite often when you're on the lake. Something about the way that the waves, something about the way the wind and the shape, I don't know, but you can see waves will just be in the middle of like a clear lake, and there'll be dark waves that could look like Ogopogo.
It's the same
and they don't
Loch
know
Ness.
how. Yeah, and there's also giant sturgeons. They don't know how deep
right.
the lake is. Actually, it's so deep that they don't even really know. And there's giant sturgeons that are quite huge, so it could be sturgeons too.
Yeah, I mean, Loch Ness has lots of. I mean, it's huge. It's like 26 miles long and 2 miles wide, and really, really deep. So the sort of stat that I heard somewhere was that you could fit every human on Earth in Loch Ness, and they wouldn't reach the surface of the water. That's how deep it is.
Holy cow! So a plesiosaur could be in there.
Well, apart from it having been ice until about 8,000 years ago. Anyway, moving swiftly on, it has the same kind of thing. So there's lots of, because it's like a big long valley, you get quite unusual wind conditions on it, which kind of give unusual waves. There's lots of boats ferrying tourists up and down to look for the monster, and the kind of boat wakes kind of intersect and produce weird patterns. And then there's lots of it's very organic rich as well, because it's there's lots of kind of peat and decaying woodland up the sides, and so you've got a lot of organic debris at the bottom, which occasionally kind of produces methane, which will bubble to the surface, or vegetation mats and stuff like that. So it's basically lots of pareidolia can take place there.
You just throw the word I can't even pronounce pareidolia down. What does that mean?
So just the propensity for people to make order out of chaos. So why you see Jesus in your toast, or the Virgin Mary in your watermelon seeds, that kind of thing.
And it's called, what's the word again? Pareidolia?
Pareidolia. Yeah, and so it's why no matter how hard you try, if you draw a circle with two smaller circles inside it and a line, you can only ever see that as a face. You can't ever see it as two circles and a line inside a big circle. Your brain is so hardwired to see faces and things like that you can't see it any other way. It's just one of our kind of basic operating systems in the brain.
I already forgot the word.
Pareidolia.
Pareidolia. I'm going to write it down because
Pareidolia.
I want to just be able to throw that into random conversations.
I was thinking we're due for another Bigfoot movie soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
A lot of pareidolia and all the Bigfoot photos on the internet.
So my friends, because they know I have this paper on Sasquatch, they keep sending me like links to Squatcher YouTube videos, and I don't think I'm fairly certain they don't believe them, but they like to send it to me to wind me up, and it's always the same. It's always like this really badly compressed, pixelated picture that's a still from a compressed YouTube film of somewhere in Washington or British Columbia, and they kind of zoom in on like 6 pixels that make the outline of a Bigfoot that's in the background and say, "This is the proof.
Yeah,
I saw it."
Undeniable. It is really fun to make you angry.
Drives me spare.
Also, I remember the day in our office when I think it was Charlie and I pretended that we believed in the healing power of crystals.
Oh God!
And we were just furious all day. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it's. I like to think that I'm quite hard to annoy and anger, but yeah, sharing an office with you and Charlie and having kids has both shown to me that that's wrong.
Well, this is way off topic, but do you remember the day that you and Charlie convinced me I was psychic? They pulled this prank.
With the YouTube video.
They pulled this prank on me that was somehow set up so that I had to choose things on the screen, and the way that Charlie moved the mouse made it so that what I said came true. So I was psychic. But instead of it being funny, I became a huge asshole, and the power went straight to my head within minutes. And then I was just insufferable all day, and they didn't know how to break it to me that I wasn't in fact psychic.
It showed us that psychic power not existing is a good thing, because it would be terrible for humanity.
Right away. You had just confirmed something that I'd always thought, though. So
maybe let's talk about the Neanderthals in this movie again. We all identified as a Neanderthal because the prosthetics are really good. He looks, I think, like a pretty good Neanderthal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were skulls in the tree which looked like Neanderthal skulls to me.
Yeah.
Possibly a bit of an early Neanderthal, maybe. But he is supposed to be like the lowest order of human evolution on the island. There's like 3 levels ahead of him, or like past him, right? So what did you get a good enough look at the other people to see what they looked like? And what do you think that the filmmakers were implying that these different levels of humans were?
I tried to get a look, honestly, I couldn't see any difference in the makeup. Like, they all had those thick brow ridges still. I couldn't see much. The only thing I could pick up was the difference in the material culture that they had. Mm-hmm. So the final group that they found, the most advanced, had paintings of animals on their shields and was playing drums and had more designer clothing, really. So I thought it was more that.
It kind of caught me off guard because the main characters in the movie, when they first encountered them, they're like, all the animals and even the people have different species living together. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice that the people looked different from one another. I thought they looked like they could be variation within a single population.
Yeah.
So I was looking, but I couldn't really tell. I'm not that much of a lumper, but they looked like they could be a single population to me.
But they didn't give us that good of a look either. So I suspect that they wanted them all to look like cave people, but I suspect they just didn't know how to do that without following the Neanderthal script.
So when they first meet the kind of cave people, the original ones, whatever people are, I think they say that there is like a huge mix of different kinds in there. Some like gorillas, but I didn't see that either. It was all over so quickly. But it looks like the sort of next level up, the ones that they meet at the quicksand, they have spears, whereas I think people only have, it looks like jawbones stuck to bits of stick, not hugely effective weapons, although they kill quite a few folk.
They killed a lot of people with them,
yeah. Who knows? Jawbones.
They were very strange because the ramus of the jawbone is affixed to the stick,
Yes.
and the condyle
I
is
know.
the weapon part.
Which is, I know.
The ramus
Would be
the ramus
pointy
is
part.
the part that holds the teeth, and
Yeah.
the condyle is the part that has the joint. And that's the weakest part, so I don't know why you would have that as
Well, and it'd be rounder,
the blade
too.
part of your weapon.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
you'd want the incisors.
Yeah, you want the teeth to be the
Mhm.
main weapon. Anyway, that's weird. Whereas the middle kind of human group that seem to have spears and beards. I don't think any of people had beards. And then like you say, the material culture of the top guys, the ones beside the primordial soup jacuzzis, they've got music and shields. And are they clean shaven? I can't even remember. Maybe that's the
I don't
evolution
think we
of
even
humans.
got up close to
From
them.
not being able to have a beard to having a beard to shaving a beard.
Yeah.
It's the 3 ages of man.
They also were all wearing fur clothing and had the jawbones for weapons, but at no point in time did we see any mammals.
It's true. That is true.
There was, when they first returned to the submarine with I thought they were carrying a small deer that they had killed with them, which must have happened off screen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But that's the only mammal I can remember seeing in the whole movie, other than humans.
Because they were going hunting, but I thought they were going hunting for dinosaurs.
I mean, they must have got through that plesiosaur pretty quickly if they were going to be hunting
that would
already
be
again.
a lot of meat. Especially with the way that it was cut, it looked like that was just a slice of the throat, like a cross-section of the throat, right?
Yeah.
So it was like a cake.
I mean, what would it taste like? Would it be like tuna or chicken or beef?
I think it would be fishy.
You think?
Like,
a marine reptile?
But it was all with that weird jiggly meat, like it was gross. There's a movie that I can think of that, you know what it reminds me of? Simpsons again, when they were eating that multi-eyed fish.
Oh, yeah.
He has it in, and it's all floppy and gross. That's what it reminded me of. So that's probably why I think it's going to taste like polluted fish.
Well, I've eaten alligator, and it's quite good.
Chicken-ish.
Huh?
I thought I've had alligator taste like chicken, kind of.
Yeah, that's
like
what
a
I
dark
thought as well.
meat chicken.
So, I mean, basically everything tastes like chicken except cows, which taste like beef.
Pork doesn't taste like chicken.
No, that's true. But I imagine that if chickens are dinosaurs and taste like chicken, gators are reptiles and taste like chicken.
And a plesiosaur is a reptile, so I guess
plesiosaurs.
it would taste like chicken.
Yeah.
Where do plesiosaurs diverge from within reptiles? Are they closer to dinosaurs or lizards?
It's a good question.
I think they're closer to dinosaurs, but they're not dinosaurs.
Let me furiously Google phylogeny of plesiosaurs.
I mean, it could be a fishy chicken. Like puffin tastes oily and fishy, right? I haven't eaten it, but
Chicken off the sea. Hang on. So according to this random Google image that I've just picked up, you've got birds and dinosaurs or sister groups, then pterosaurs, then crocodilians, then turtles, and then on the other branch you've got plesiosaurs, ichthyosaurs, and lizards and snakes.
Really?
So
outside of
somewhere
turtles,
between,
even.
yeah. Anyone eaten turtle? I've not eaten turtle.
No, that's horrible.
No.
I love turtles.
Have anyone eaten anything lizard-like? Anyone eaten a snake? They're supposed to be quite chickeny as well, I think. I think chicken's probably the
snake?
best.
No, the most lizardy I've eaten is alligator. I've had fermented shark. That was pretty gross. That could be plesiosaurus too.
I'm surprised because it sounds so appetizing.
Well, I just took a tiny little bite, like a tiny little piece, just to say that
Was this because of Una, by any chance?
Well, it's because I was in Iceland and you got stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Una probably would have really, really teased me if I hadn't.
So I think we're fairly secure with plesiosaurs tasting like chicken, even if they looked like kind of grey jelly.
So then, do turtles taste like chicken? I don't want to know.
No, I don't know.
Because if a turtle, like if a plesiosaur tastes like chicken, and that's how far it out, then you have to assume that then the turtles, like all of those, would taste like chicken. How far away do you get? How strong is a chicken taste?
Yeah.
Turtles are supposed to taste really good, right? Because didn't Darwin collect some turtles on his voyage and they ended up eating all of them on the way back?
Oh, yeah, turtle soup is a delicacy.
And
so let's Google this.
Giant tortoises were, they kind of ship dinner for many groups. But I don't recall anyone describing what they taste like. Maybe I should furiously Google that as well.
Some random Google thing says it tastes like beef.
Okay.
And apparently it palpitates when it gets cooked and spoils.
Something like mutton, apparently, is what giant tortoises
when you look at it,
taste
it's
like.
very red. It looks like a red meat. A large snapping turtle is said to contain several distinct types of meat, each reminiscent of pork, chicken, beef, shrimp, veal, fish, or goat. Ugh. So maybe when you get far enough, enough of an ancestral node that you get all the flavors. So maybe a plesiosaur, there's different cuts that taste like different flavors. Or maybe it's a flavor we don't even know.
That's how this movie probably thinks it works, with the way it's depicting evolution, where everything just flows down the river and you start off with a mishmash of everything, and then it refines itself as it goes up north.
Maybe plesiosaur tastes like something we don't even know or are missing out.
Maybe everything tastes like plesiosaur.
Maybe
we're looking at it the wrong way.
I almost forgot what movie we're talking about.
Here's something that I've noticed in these older movies that we've been watching. The set of dinosaurs that they use... Sorry, my cat is meowing. Boots! Stop meowing. I'm going to have to edit this out later. The set of dinosaurs that they use seems to be different from the standard ones that people think of today, because almost all these movies use an Allosaurus, and few of them have a Tyrannosaurus. But today, most people would think about a Tyrannosaurus as the main large theropod bad guy. And others I guess since Jurassic Park, we have Dromaeosaurs and everything, rather than whatever other carnivores they could use in these other movies. But also Ceratosaurus is one that all these old movies have, with the horn on its nose. You never see a Ceratosaurus in movies these days.
Well, this one had a Dilophosaurus too, which you never see.
It would always be Apatosaurus or Brachiosaurus.
Yeah.
Jurassic Park had Brachiosaurus.
So what I always wondered is if has what is popular changed, or are they trying to go for less popular ones to make it look more like edgy and indie? But it wasn't the typical Stegosaurus, but it was a Stegosaur. In this one, and the Triceratops.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of chart that. Maybe think about doing a paper on popularity of dinosaurs in popular movies.
Yeah, see the representation, whether the movies, does media cause the popularity, or does the popularity stimulate the media?
Maybe a paper like that's already been done. Might be worth looking for.
Maybe. But if you write this paper, Ross, I want my name on it. To be on it.
Of course.
Okay. Let's all work on this paper. After we're done this podcast, we'll just make sure we switch to dinosaur movies.
Well, we have to also write the paper on the Bigfoot eyes.
Yeah.
Right?
Don't say that one on here. That's a real paper I want to do.
Oh.
Don't let people steal it.
We've already talked about it. Okay, edit it out.
Did we actually talk about it on the podcast or not?
Yeah, you might have. We talked about it. You might have edited it out. I don't know.
I've written about this elsewhere online anyway, so anybody could do that.
If he gets scoops.
Well, he gets to choose what gets published, so it's up to him.
Do you have any other thoughts about this one?
I didn't hate it. I just found it a bit dull in some places, but the parts that I enjoyed, I really loved, like the discussion of which one goes with plesiosaur and the dinosaurs fighting, and
I really liked it. I mean, I can tell that it's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination. It's not even a particularly good film, but it's just so characteristic of a particular period of time in kind of movie making, and also it has a lot of nostalgia value for me as the kind of films that I was allowed to watch as a kid on kind of Saturday afternoons or Sunday mornings kind of thing. And they just don't make them like that anymore, with that kind of almost joy, I guess, at making something that's, you can tell that they're kind of stretching their artistic muscles to try and make something good. Not getting there, but I mean, it's still having a blast along the way.
Yeah.
I would recommend, if you're going to watch it, watch the Mystery Science Theater 3000 version. I think that'll be the best way to watch it. Mystery Science Theater is it's a show where there's some conceit that some space villain has captured this guy and forced him to watch bad movies. So it's this guy and 3 robots that watch this movie and just talk over top the whole movie and make jokes about it.
Oh, I should have watched that one. Are we going to watch the 2009 one too?
Eventually, I guess. It looks like it might only have dinosaurs and no cavemen.
There's also, I think, The People That Time Forgot is a kind of sort of sequel to it that still has Doug McClure in it. That might be, I think, is that on Letterboxd? I can't mind.
I think
But
it is, yeah.
presumably by the title, it will have cave people in it.
That'll be a good one to do eventually.
I would give this half an Encino Man if I had to score it.
5?
Yeah.
Out of 5 Encino Men?
What'd you give Caveman, though?
Oh, I think it was like a 2 or a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd give this one maybe a 4.
It's got 5.6 on IMDb, so...
Yeah.
It's hard to say, though, because, sometimes, I could have been in another mood and loved it, maybe. Paid more attention to it. Or not, because I can only watch men fake fighting on a submarine for so long.
You didn't find yourself falling for Doug McClure?
No, I did not.
I mean, it's quite strange. I mean, clearly he's going for kind of leading man kudos, but
he has no presence though.
Yeah, I
thought she was the most present actor.
He's quite weird looking, even Doug McClure. He's everything's kind of facially in the right sort of proportions, but it just doesn't quite work.
Yes, if someone was trying to make a good-looking man robot but just didn't have it quite right, but nobody could put your finger on what was wrong, right?
Are we trying to say that he's almost in the uncanny valley? I think that's what we're kind of getting towards. Yeah. Sorry, Mr. McClure, if you're listening.
I'm sure he was. He was so good looking that you don't look real.
Yeah, that's a good way to phrase it.
If you've been enjoying Screens of the Stone Age, get in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at SOTSA_podcast and on Facebook at SOTSA podcast, or send us an email to screensofthestonage@gmail.com. Screens of the Stone Age is supported by the Paleoanthropological Society of Canada. Find out more at pasc-scpa.ca.